Welcome to the ModeOne podcast in Discovery Mode. Today's episode, titled Leave the Travel to Vacations, How Remote Mobile Collections Cut Time, Cost, and Headaches, explores how mobile data collection has evolved from travel-heavy, in-person workflows to secure, cloud-based remote collection, and why this shift has become the new industry standard. Today, Ryan Frye, Chief Innovation Officer at ModeOne, is joined by William Odom, co-founder at Orbital Data Consulting, to discuss real-world use cases, global collection challenges, defensibility, and how remote collections are helping teams move faster while reducing risk and unnecessary travel. Let's get into it.
Hey everybody, Ryan Frye here with ModeOne, Chief Innovation Officer. I'm here with Bill. How are you this morning?
Doing well, Ryan. Thank you.
Awesome. So excited to kind of chat with you. It's good to see you again. I know we run into each other a few times a year out in the wild, and we've worked together now for, I think, coming on our third year together in the ModeOne Orbital relationship. So excited to do this with you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you asking me on. And again, it's always good to see you on screen, in person, wherever. Always a good time. Already been 3 years. That seems like it's gone by pretty quickly.
I know. It's crazy. Well, it's good to see you. And I know our topic today is really just diving in on how remote collections have sort of evolved over the years. And I know I've been in the business for over 18 years, and I'm sure you've got me beat by a little bit there. I know we've swapped
Maybe a little bit,
yeah. Yeah, it's always fun. But man, it was fun thinking about this topic earlier, because I remember even pre-COVID, right? Traveling was really the only way to get around, to get to computers or phones, for example. You know, most digital devices required kind of hands-on, and that's taken me all over the world in my previous life. And I've got about 46 states on the map. I don't know about you. Were you traveling all the time too in your early days?
Yeah. And I mean, there's occasionally still a need for that, but it's certainly been reduced. Yeah, early days. Like you duly noted, I've been doing this a bit longer than you, even before there were cell phones. But yeah, the travel has always been a significant part, or traditionally, has been a significant part of doing any sort of collection, but certainly on the mobile collections too. And, and even so, our Go kits have gotten smaller, but, it's still a need for a kit. You still have other stuff you have to carry around. You've got, all the logistics of like even going through customs in a new country and whether you're supposed to declare that kit or not. Just a number of things that were just crazy and unpredictable and always cause problems, for traditional in-person collections.
Yeah. Did you ever have any like crazy stories at the border sort of thing? I remember personally one trip I took, we shipped a bunch of equipment and then I traveled with a bunch of equipment because we had no idea what was gonna make it and what wasn't. And I'm so glad I traveled with the carry-on full of equipment. Did you ever have any fun stories like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think, and it really depends on which country you're going into. Like you said, you've gone through 46 states. I'm at 45, I think, but
Nice.
also, in terms of countries, that's one of the things, the travel is crazy, but I've been through 6 of the 7 continents, and every continent I've been on has been I've done a collection in that particular continent. Certain places have different ideas about what you should be doing and how they're going to do that. I know one time in Mexico that they said that should have been declared, and I wasn't allowed to come through unless I paid the $500 right there. So that was an interesting one. I wasn't expecting, but had to get that sorted. So yeah, I mean, it's just you never know, right? That's the thing, and the more stuff you're walking in with, particularly technical equipment, the more I think, people are eyeing you. It's like, what does this person do here? Hang on a second, we need to talk to you.
Yeah. I wonder if your Mexico experience is a new trend. I know I was in a wedding in Mexico not that long ago, and they had like a tourist tax now, or they're trying to conform to that. So I don't know. Sometimes it seems like a gimmick, but sometimes you never know. Yeah, that's tough. But I've been pretty lucky. I haven't had to be turned around a lot of times. Have you ever traveled and then just gotten there and they either refused access or the case settled while you're on the flight? Like, great, I'm glad I got 3 hours of sleep for nothing.
Yeah, I've not had where a case settled, but I had where it was decided when I was on the plane that they were not going to let me do the work. So I landed and they'd said to call the law firm. I landed, had my phone had been blown up while I was flying. This is
Yeah.
really before the days of Wi-Fi even, but he said, yeah, call. And sure enough said, yeah, we don't need you. So I literally went to the flight desk and turned around and flew back. So I was from Houston to New York and back. So that was an interesting day.
Yeah.
But yeah, and certainly, turn away or, yeah, we tried to get in contact with you because, the schedule has changed. And that's always one, because the custodians that we're collecting from, it varies from, maybe an administrator, but all the way up to the C-suite. But it doesn't matter. People don't want to
Yeah.
get rid of their phones or there's a scheduling conflict.
Hmm.
Sick kids, they had to go. Anything you can think of, whether legitimate or an excuse, we've probably run across at some level like that.
Yeah, no doubt. And then I think, one of the things I noticed was when COVID hit, there was a little bit of a change. It used to be maybe 20 phones in one location. You're kind of like, yeah, you know what? That might make sense. Let's bang them out in person. But now you've got 20 phones in 16 locations, right? Because no one's
Yeah.
working in a big office anymore. And I recall that kind of being a big shift in terms of like, do we send people to their homes? Like, is that something that the company wants to do or support? And there's just this big shift in how we handled the in-person collections. And so I don't know about you guys, but we've worked with companies that will send two people every single time too, because of that safety and privacy aspect of now people working from home or scattered a lot more. It's just a different dynamic altogether.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, for Orbital, we set up during COVID, so our infrastructure and it's in our bones to be able to work remotely. But as you said, during COVID, that really changed it. And certainly, from a safety or security aspect, or even just somebody feeling comfortable or not, coming into their
Mhm.
home, that was it. But also people didn't want you coming in because they were concerned about what was happening with the pandemic, right? If
That's
you're,
right.
getting their family sick or whatnot. So we did see a fundamental shift in that, as bad as, the pandemic was and everything that COVID did in terms of redirecting how stuff works in our
Mhm.
industry. It certainly affected it, I think, in a positive way, across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, like you said, Orbital was sort of born in that era. ModeOne right behind you, I think, a
Yeah.
year or two after, and I think it's been a good energy between us. I think we've all seen the explosion of short message data. What are like the popular apps right now that you guys deal with every week?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the apps are going to be like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, all the, secure messaging apps, but also, the standard messaging apps too. I think one of the things that people are asking about as well is just what other data can be stored on the phones now, so particularly since
Yeah.
there's so much data, right? And it's, some of the cases that we do work on, it's like theft of IP or something similar. And, the way that, one trend that we've noticed is that a lot of people, as opposed to emailing documents to themselves, they just take their phone and take a picture of that document. And, that's, or take a picture of a whiteboard and that ends up being the information that they need. They, one or two, maybe, a one off, but if you've got
Yeah.
500 on your phone, that's not, that's something else. And so, just for people to understand what is on the phone, what information they're looking for, and of course, based on our experience, the messaging apps are always the biggest ask. Email, if any exists, or any other sort of place where data could sit. If there's cloud-based tools, such as Dropbox or whatever, that if they're being accessed or utilized from there, then like I said, photographs and videos are also, that may be a secondary thing sometimes, but like I said, we see a lot of trends in terms of where the data is residing, and it's only getting more on the phones and more into, stored on the device itself,
Yeah.
as opposed to the traditional ways of email or on the computer.
Exactly. Are you guys seeing sort of the same trends that pretty much every matter, every case you guys work involves a phone? It seems like there's a computer, an email, and a phone almost every single time. Are you guys seeing that trend as well? Just
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah. And in fact, we're getting to the point where I'd say we're getting email, certainly one, but phones more so than computers anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough if you had to deploy in person every single time. So, I think you guys have been a big proponent and advocate of ModeOne. And has the ModeOne technology worked well for you guys in terms of being able to zero in on what you wanted to and do it a little bit quicker than maybe you could if you traveled and had to do it the old school way?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a number of ways that we approach this too, right? Because there is still some of our clients or law firms that they are a bit old school and they're want to make sure it's like we're getting everything. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk through what this process looks like. What is everything for you? What is it that you need to get? We talked about the apps. We talked about understanding other bits, around encrypted data, things like that. But it's like, can we do any different if we were in person versus using ModeOne, right? That's
Yeah.
sort of step one. Step two is it's just in terms of the cost. And again, if it is something, if we're not trying to get everything off the phone, which we're finding now more and more is not the case, let's
Yeah.
do what I would call a targeted collection. And we're even seeing that trend even with in-person collections in terms of a targeted collection, just because we're getting a lot more concern, like we said, of people worried about their personal data,
Yeah.
what's going on there, things like that, which I understand. So it's like we can work through this, but we actually, even if we were asked to do an on-site collection, we would still say let's use ModeOne
Okay.
because we can target that a lot better and get what you need and without some of the complications you're trying to get us to do using some other tool.
Mm.
And not to say that, we may do the belt and suspenders and collect it a couple of different ways, but for our purposes, it's been great. And it's, one, it's easy to deploy. Two, the end user, we rarely have any issues with them not being able to, help us out. Sometimes there may be the occasional thing, but we can typically work through that. But the overall workflow for us has just gotten a lot better. And again, with the idea of us being able to, get the data that we need in a timely manner and just get it set up and go, it's cut out all of those points that were at issue before, particularly the travel costs, the concern about other delays. And, like for us, going back to sort of the older model, part of that was, you had to send people out and that meant that they're not available to do anything else. So there's the
Yeah.
cost of them sitting there, but there's also the cost to us that we can't use that person while we have other work to do. So, and then taking that even one step further, there's only so many phones you can do concurrently, right? It's not
Yeah.
like, it's dependent on the amount of the licensing that you have. So,
Yeah.
that's using y'all's tool that's gone away for us. We don't have those concerns. It's just, convincing the folks that this is the best way to do it, which more and more people, since COVID, they're more inclined to do that. Again, I think that old school thinking of you've got to be in person, we've been able to sell folks on the fact that you don't. So it is
Yeah.
our preference to use your tool for that very reason. And it's saved us a lot. It's helped us a lot.
Well, that's awesome. Good to hear. I know you mentioned privacy. That's got to be huge. I know you guys have a pretty broad global presence of your client base. And
Right.
have you ever had to deploy ModeOne globally, either for the privacy reason or keep data in country sort of reason, any or avoid travel because maybe you weren't stationed in another country or your team wasn't. Do you have any good real world cases there?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, say all the above, we've had the need for that. We've certainly done data collections in areas where data privacy is it's an issue in the US, but it's a bit more regulatory wise, covered like in EU or, in a lot of
Yeah.
other countries outside of the US. So the number one component about that is making sure that any data stays in country, right, or in region, whatever that region is. So if it's GDPR, then it stays within the EU or like the UK. They're still following the same standard and still do the same
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, we have had examples of that, and that's been significant because the reasons we're getting this is again, it's, it's a large C-suite or, senior people in the company, and they travel and they're not always there. So it's like, okay, we're
Yeah.
going to get one today, we're going to get two tomorrow. And those people, we could try and plan and be in their office, but their office is not where we're located. It's actually out of country. So, somebody'd have to sit there while they wait for phones to come in and out. Whereas, this way it's like, no, we plan it, we went through the client, said, here's how we're presenting this, let's do it. And, and that's how we did it. And we were able to collect, data pretty quickly without a lot of the issues. And they were happy with the collections. We were happy with it. Everything worked out well. I mean, that's one, certainly our biggest one that y'all helped us with, was we had a matter turn up where we needed a data collection done in Australia. That was one place we don't have anybody. We were able to get approval for that data to reside in the UK. So we used the UK storage AWS, for that. And again, we found out, I think it was like on a Friday, we were able to get the work done over the weekend, and, they had what they needed by Monday. If somebody had to travel there, regardless of where in the world they were, it'd still take them a full day just to even get there. So we had already collected the data and were, processed it and moved on to better things by the time Monday came around. So that one, yeah, that was a big one for us, and one, we actually tell folks too. It's like, yes, this works, and this is how we know it works, and even at halfway around the world, we can still get this data collected and still get through it, and it's not an issue.
Yeah. That flight to Australia is no joke from the States. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or from the UK. It's no joke
Oh
too,
yeah.
just the other way.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Yeah, no doubt. Well, that's good. And you guys have been a big proponent of using the cloud for a while, right? Like that's kind of one of your models. Like
yeah,
so
I mean that
you're
really is our
already,
model. Yeah.
yeah, be in the
For
cloud,
for
be in
yeah, for
region.
storage, for licensing. I mean, we have to.
Yeah.
We do work in a lot of regions, and we have to keep that data in region. Or there's, in some instances, we've got a couple of matters where the data cannot come into a certain region, so we need to make sure it stays out. So, our infrastructure is based on that, but, we model similarly what you guys do in terms of using cloud for storage and then the cloud for, the other work. So if we collect the data through y'all, that's easy for us to keep it in that region and just transfer it over into our environment. There's
Yeah.
nothing we would do different than if we, we're sitting there, it'd be the same thing. So yeah, we're a huge proponent of it, and clearly that's a big part of our infrastructure. So we need to make
Yeah.
sure that works flawlessly, and it does. Again, it's speedy. We don't have the licensing issues that we might with a physical dongle,
Yeah.
and anything around that. So
Yeah. Well, that's good. And I'm sure your employees, and I know you guys have grown so much and hired so many people over the years. I'm sure they appreciate a little bit of a different or better. Maybe they've never experienced what we had to experience, in the work-life balance area, the 5 a.m. flights sort of thing.
yeah.
All
Oh,
the great
some have.
places.
Yeah, there's bad of places, weirdest places I've been. I've sent my folks to even worse places, but so not because I have it to get out for them. It's just that's where the data's sitting, right? So
Yeah. Someone's
good
got to
luck.
go.
So yes, I know it matters like that they would. They're certainly pleased that we're able to manage this without the
Yeah.
travel cost.
Well, good. Well, good. Well, we joked before, but just flying out to places, I've been a lot of places, but I haven't really visited or seen a lot of places. Just the crappy hotel room and or the client's office is about it. So I'm excited to spend more time flying for fun or conferences. I'm looking forward to seeing you here soon at
Yeah,
Legal Week, and it's
yeah,
good chatting with you today, and glad to see kind of we're all aligned on remote collections kind of being the new norm, or in this day and age.
yeah. I mean, that's become the question that we get is, what are your remote collection capabilities? Again, going back a few years, that would not have been a question that was asked, or if it was asked, it was like, okay, what's the downside to doing this? That's not the case anymore. People have obviously become more conscious of what technology is there, what they see it's available, even in, just normal day-to-day stuff. So they're like, there's got to be a way you can do this. And so we're happy to be able to say, yes, there is. Here's our solution. And we've never been questioned on it. Well, we've been questioned, but we've never been like, oh no, we don't want to do that. So it's always been okay, that's fine. If we can attest to it,
Yeah.
which we do, and what we're able to get, and if I go testify on my collection, I'll say, yep, this is how we got it, and this is how we verified it, and no problems. And that, like you said, that's become the new norm. And so, yeah, I'm like you. I have enough luggage as it is. I don't need to have a kid added and getting pulled over in customs anywhere. So I'm
Yeah.
happy to go get on a plane with just to, go to conferences and see you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bill, it's good to see you. As always, good talking with you. And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, Ryan, same here. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In Discovery Mode. Follow us on LinkedIn for updates on new episodes or visit us online at www.modeone.io.